Well, hello and welcome. My name is Sean Bordner, and I'm a solution architect with i3 Solutions. And today we're going to look a little bit at the SharePoint 2010 metadata, specifically the things that carried across from 2007 and the enhancements and the new things, and understanding all this terminology and as it fits into the business world and real world application of them. So I thought it made the most amount of sense to start off with just explaining what we're here to talk about today. It's really just classification. And classification in the SharePoint world can be broken down into two main areas. You have folksonomy and you have taxonomy. Now, folksonomy, it's just tags created by end users. Anybody can go there, create a tag, and apply it to a piece of content. Now, taxonomy, on the other hand, it's still a tag, but it's created by somebody with appropriate permissions. Now, this slide says by administrators, but in reality, anybody with appropriate permissions to create your organization's proper taxonomy will be able to create tags that anyone within the organization will be able to apply to your content. Now, again, metadata is simply data about data, and it provides a lot of benefit for us, particularly in the SharePoint world. So the importance of classification really can't be understated, but to explain some of the things we'll be doing with it is you use metadata to relate content to other pieces of content. So we've all been at Amazon and we're looking at a book review on the left-hand side, and then of course on the right-hand side it says related books. That's relating content to other pieces of content. That is handled with taxonomy. Both of those pieces of content have been tagged in a similar fashion, and so the system can automatically roll up 10 or 20 results and display them on the right-hand side. Now, we also use it to relate content to human beings or to people, and this is just, of course, personalization. So when you log into the system, for example, you'll see things that are applicable to you by virtue of you belong to business unit HR and I might belong to IT, or maybe I belong to finance. It knows things about me and it knows things about the content, and so therefore it can make these relationships. In SharePoint we use audiences for that. And then it improves findability. And of course, the more we tag our content and classify it properly, the smarter the search engine can be and return highly relevant results for the end users, and it can really create a top-notch end user search experience. But it's also helpful for the organization, which is the structure. And this is also playing into the findability topic, because if our content is tagged and classified correctly, people will be able to find it better, even if they're just clicking through the site, not even using the search engine. So an example of that might be, we have a page that aggregates everything that has been tagged as topic XYZ. That page is very helpful. No matter where that stuff lives, it gets aggregated, rolled up, and displayed on that page. And it's very easy to surface that page to the end user within a SharePoint environment. So some of the terminology I think we should probably spend a second on, specific to SharePoint 2010. I thought it made sense to explain it like this. The blue box is showing us the things we still had back in 2007. And we do still have those in SharePoint 2010, and we do still use those. We'll use those a lot. So we have content types and site columns. We had those in 2007, we still have them in 2010, but 2010 introduces a handful of new capabilities to us, starting with term stores. Then you get into term sets and managed metadata, and you have keywords, and then keywords can be broken down into two flavors. You have normal keywords and enterprise keywords, and I'll explain all that as we go through here today. So let's start with a content type. You guys are probably familiar with the concept of a content type, but I just want to explain it very briefly, and hopefully everybody will be on the same page. A content type is simply a container of site columns. Okay, so you can do a lot of things with content types. It's very important, but at the most simplistic definition, the easiest way I can explain it is just it's a container of columns. Okay, so before we get any farther, let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to hop over to a VM I have running and show you what a content type looks like. So here's the VM. I'm going to put this in full screen mode. And so for a content type, let's kind of back our way into what a content type is here. Now this is SharePoint 2010. This is just an out-of-the-box demo that I have here. So I'm going to go to the HR site and go into a list that they have. They have a list called purchase requests. So let's go to that list. And then from here, I can see they only have one entry. This is one item in this list. So let's go up to the ribbon and have a look at this list under the hood a little bit. So I'll go to list settings in the ribbon. And then from here, I can scroll down and see what content types this list is using. So under the content type section, we're using a content type called purchase request. Makes sense because the list is called purchase request. So let's again remember what a content type is. It's a container of columns, right? So let's click on purchase request and see what columns. So we have title, description of request, and that's multiple lines of text. We have total cost, that's of type currency. We have department budget. This is the budget that it would be pulling from to pay for it if it's approved. And that's managed metadata. That one is completely new for 2010, and I'll explain some of that in a little bit. But that's what a content type is. Content types is just a container of site columns, and here's the site columns that belongs to the content type purchase request. Okay? So let's hop back over. And move along. The next topic, term store. This is completely new for SharePoint 2010. A term store is a container of term sets. Term sets are containers for terms. So a term could just be a tag. An example of that might be, an example of term might be topic A. Another term might be topic B. Another term might be topic C. The term set that all three of those terms belong to might be called topics, and the term store that contains that term set and other term set, the term store itself might be called corporate taxonomy. Okay? Okay, so that's an explanation of what 2010 offers in terms of the term store management, the term sets and terms. Let's go have a look at this so you can see it. And so let's hop back over to my VM. I'll maximize this. And so what we want to do here is go back over to my term store management tool. And again, you see corporate taxonomy. If I minimize that, that is simply just a term store. I want to create a new term set inside of this term store. And to do that, let's create a new one that we can use to continue this example of purchase requests. So the new one will be called business objectives. So I'll pull up Microsoft Word just so I can see my terms that I want to create. And then back over in the term store management console, basically, I'm going to drop that down and say new term set. So I'm creating a new term set underneath this term store, corporate taxonomy. I'll give it a name, business objective. That's it. I just created the new term set. How do I add terms to this new term set? Go to that term set, drop it down and say create term. And I'll type in deliver outstanding services. That's one of our business objectives. Hit enter. Type in my next one, deliver outstanding products. And I'll do this a few times for some more terms. And finally, serve the community. Okay, so that's how we create a new term set and populate it with terms. Now, let's go back over to the slides and let's walk through bringing it all together. So you understand the concept of a content type, and you understand the concept of a term store and term set. So to bring all that together, we'll start with content types. Again, a content type is a container of site columns. You can apply content type to lists and document libraries and various other objects in SharePoint. And what's new with 2010, of course, is the term store that we just ran through. Again, that's a container of term sets. A term set is just a container of terms, and we just walked through the example of creating a new term set and populating it with terms. So these two are brought together by adding the manage metadata. So what I mean there is, after you've created a term set, you can actually include that into one of your site columns in SharePoint. So you just add the Manage Metadata site column. It's a new type called Manage Metadata in SharePoint 2010. And when you add that, it exposes all those term sets and terms that we created over in the term store management console. So to walk you through that, just so you've seen it done, let's hop back over to the VM. Bring my site back up. And so for this, I think it makes sense to go straight into the content type and add a new site column to that content type. Tell it that it needs to be a managed metadata site column, and then point it to the new term store that we created, or term set that we created called business objectives. So let's walk through that. So I want to go to site settings, and I actually want to be up one level from where I'm at. And then what we want to do is go into our content types. So under galleries, we'll click on site content types. We want to find our purchase request content type. Right here it is under custom content types, so let's click that. And now let's add it. Add from new site column. Because again, this site column doesn't exist yet. It only exists over in the term store. So I'm going to call this business objectives. And then you'll see manage metadata is an option for us, and that's new again for 2010. If I scroll down, there's a couple other things I want to point out as I'm scrolling down. Allow multiple values. If I wanted them to be able to choose multiple values, I'd check that. And then here's my manage metadata service, and I'm going to drill down. This should look familiar. This is what it looked like when we're over at the console. And I want to find corporate taxonomy because that's where I created my new term set. And if I scroll down, business objective, that's what I want to add. So I'll just click on business objective and say OK. Now that's going to add that to that content type. So now it's just another column within the content type, purchase request. So let's go take a look at that. If we go back to our HR site, we go to a list that's honoring that content type, which is purchase request list. And if we go to list settings, let's have a look. Sure enough, business objectives showing up there, and so will business objectives will also show up in every other list that's using the content type that we just added that to. So if we click add new item, so we're adding a new purchase request. This is, since I'm in HR, I'm making a request, so we need new pens. So I'm going to justify this request with the description. We need some new pens because the old ones leak a lot. Total cost, I estimate this is going to be about $10. Department budget. What department budget is this coming from? If I start typing, you'll see the IntelliSense starts making suggestions. And I could click on HR. Alternatively, check this out. I could click on the little tags there, and it's going to bring up this drop down where I can select it like that, say select. And because this particular one does not allow multiple selections, if I click on finance and say select, it replaces it. Okay, so let's put that back to HR, and now let's go to business objectives. Now for this one, again, I could start typing, or I can say, okay, we need this to deliver outstanding products, and you'll see it put a little semicolon there, which also indicates that I can clearly add more. So I'll say also improve efficiencies. Say okay. Hit save. And we're done. So let's hop back over. Okay, so the last part of this really is something that it took me a while to get sorted out in my own mind, and so I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. The notion of keywords. So keywords come in two flavors in SharePoint 2010. Okay, so you have regular keywords and you have enterprise keywords. It's very confusing, but here's the bottom line. Keywords, the regular keywords, are stored in a site column. You go to a site, create a site column. Keywords are stored in a site column at the site level. Enterprise keywords, on the other hand, are stored over in the term store. Okay, so we already ran through an example. We're creating a new term set called business objectives, and we populated it with terms. That's where enterprise keywords are stored. So you would store enterprise keywords at that level if you wanted to use these keywords across multiple sites, across multiple site collections, across multiple web apps even in 2010. So to show you that, I think the best way to illustrate that is if I hop back over to my VM and just go to the site columns of this site, okay? So to get the site columns, you just go to Site Actions, Site Settings, then you go to Galleries and click on Site Columns. Now when you go there, you'll see all these keywords, or all of these site columns rather. And if we come here and you do a search for keywords, just a IE search, it shows up twice. One time it shows up under Core Document Columns. And as you can see, it is just a normal site column, has multiple lines of text. It's here at the site level. But if we go to the next one, which is enterprise keywords, it is actually managed metadata. That tells us it's actually being stored over here in the term store. And to prove that to you, let's hop back over to the term store. And it should be under System. So let's minimize business objective that we created, minimize corporate taxonomy store that we were using, expand System, and there it is. That's keywords. These are your enterprise keywords. This is where they're stored. So if I expand this, here they all are. And you can scroll up and down through this list. It's in alphabetical order. So that's the difference between the two flavors of keywords, and it took me a little while to get that figured out. So to get this wrapped up for you, let's run through the summary. of what we just went through. So again, we worked through content types. All this metadata stuff boils down to just a few things. You have content types, which is a collection of site columns. You have term stores, which is a collection of term sets. Ultimately, just a collection of terms. Now we flop over into the world of managed metadata, and that's where the terms are. Keywords can be broke down into two flavors. Regular keywords stored at the site level in a site column. Enterprise keywords stored really at the enterprise level in the term store. And from term stores all down, that's all new for 2010. It gives us a lot more capabilities and a more user-friendly way of working and managing it. And it's a lot more sophisticated. So at this point, I think we can start taking questions, and hopefully I'll have an answer for them.